Welcome to today's program, Virtual Author Talk with Don Quigley, Representation Matters, presented by book author Don Quigley with a Q&A moderated by Alicia Wakaw Butler. We would like to begin with the Dakota County's Library Land Acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that Dakota County Library and its 9 locations are located on the traditional and ancestral lands of Indigenous people. Dakota County resides on the land that has been inhabited by the Wakaputi, Witwakiton, Dakota people, and other native nations from time immemorial. Seated in a land treaty signed in July of 1851, this land holds great historical, spiritual, and personal significance for its original stewards, the native nations, and the peoples of this region. We also want to respectfully acknowledge that Dakota County Library is the namesake of the Dakota people. By offering this acknowledgement, we work towards our value of acting inclusively and our mission of learning and recognize our collective responsibility to engage our community in the history of the lands of Indigenous people. This program is made possible with funds from Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, which was approved by Minnesota voters in 2008. It is a delight and an honor to welcome and introduce our moderator tonight, Alicia Wakaw Butler. Alicia Wakaw Butler is from the Navajo and Menominee tribal nations. Alicia has lived in Minnesota for 11 years now, and during this time in Minnesota, she has organized the Native Women and Friends Book Club. She has also worked at Birch Bark Bookstore for 10 years. Alicia lives in West St. Paul and enjoys going to powwow with her family, as well as taking quiet time to read. Welcome, Alicia.
Hi, Jade and everyone. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I am so pleased to be here tonight to have this time to talk with Don Quigley, who is the author of such a wonderful book and other various titles, such as Apple in the Middle, that I have as well. But tonight we're here to discuss Jojo McCoon's, who was created by this wonderful author, Don Quigley, who's a Turtle Mountain Band of Ojibwe member. She's also an assistant professor at the Midwest University Education's Department. She taught English and reading for 18 plus years in the K-12 schools, and is also an education program co-director in previous positions. She has books such as Apple in the Middle, and her newest is Jojo McCoon's The Used to Be Best Friend. So we really want to welcome Don Quigley tonight here.
Well, bonjour, Anine. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Jade and Alicia, for the introductions. And so I am going to do a little presentation, and I'm really going to gear it towards families. Hopefully we have some young readers and future authors out there. And so I always like to say, because it's the educator in me, who my audience is. And so that's really who it's for. I write for children. And so I just want to honor them. And so I am going to share my screen, and I'm going to do a little presentation. And then I'm also at the end going to do a mini read from the first chapter of Jojo McCoon's. And then we'll do some questions, because as the audience, you really are the star here. Okay, and of course it's backwards, so oops. I'm gonna stare at the front. Hopefully nobody gets vertigo. I have vertigo really bad. That means you're really, really dizzy all the time, especially when you see things like this. So I know that my friends Alicia, Renee, and Jade will hop in if nobody can see anything. So I'm just gonna get started. So yes, I am here to talk to all of my reader friends and my friends that have joined virtually. Just a little bit about me, but then more about Jojo McCoons. So that's what I said we're gonna visit about, a little bit about me, about growing up and how important libraries and books were to me. Just a snippet about what writing is, and then I'll read aloud. All right, so there's me. It's summer now, yes, here in Minnesota. We talk about weather a lot, and it's been very, very hot here. I love water. I love being on the water, in the water. And so that's why I love this picture here. A little bit about me. I taught for 18 years. I taught kindergarten, first, second grade, all the way up to 9th grade. And I always really focused on, my passion really is reading, helping children to read no matter what age, and then writing and English and language arts. But right now I'm a college professor. And so what I do is I help people who want to be a teacher. They have to get a certain degree. And so I'm helping them right now. I have a family as well. And so we have 2 girls. One is almost finished with high school and one is almost finished with college. I am a citizen of the Turtle Mountain Band of Ojibwe, and that is a smaller Ojibwe reservation way, way up by Canada in the middle of North Dakota. And I love, love, love to read. And you can see that those aren't my moccasins, that picture down there, but it's a beautiful example of the floral beading artwork that is very typical of Ojibwe people, because Ojibwe people, we live in very wooded areas. And so a lot of our art is about flowers and vines and berries and leaves. All right, so yes, that is me back in the day. That is my 2nd grade picture. And so I always like to show this so that children realizes that, you know, we grown-ups, we really were kids. And so that was me. And the library is where I spent a lot of time. I grew up in Mankato, Minnesota. And so you know, I didn't have a lot of books growing up. When I was growing up, people didn't really buy books for their house, for their children, as much, or maybe it's just my family, but we definitely went to the library a lot. And so growing up in Mankato, I would go to, I would kind of go to the back and go to the children's section. And when I went back there, I had to pass this really big mural. So a mural is like a giant wall size painting, and this was it. And so it was spotlights on it. And this is an author, a local Mankato author. Her name is Maud Hart Levis. And she wrote a series of books about what it was like for her to grow up in that area, I think in the early 1900s. And you can see right there. But, you know, I as a Native child, you know, I still get, I love being outside, even with sunscreen. I still get very dark, and I did back then. And so when I looked at this, when I was very young, I knew that this was somebody that was important because the spotlights were right on this person, but I never saw myself in these books. I never connected with these books. I never saw big extended Native families. You know, we didn't just visit for a night or two. I mean, we stayed for a long time. I mean, we were there for weeks with each other, and it was always fun, and we still do that. And so that was, I know I could not articulate, I couldn't really explain to myself or describe why I didn't connect to a lot of books when I was growing up. But I still did love to read. And so that's one of the reasons that I started writing, is because I want children, whether they're Native or not Native, to really see themselves in books or see Native people as contemporary. So contemporary means that it's modern day, that it's not all stuck in the past, and it's not all things from 200-300 years ago. It is important to read about Native American history, language, and culture, especially the state you live in. But I also wanted to write to see that people, that Native people are still here. And so this is some of the books that I've written. The Apple in the Middle was my first book, and it got a lot of rejections. And so that is sort of part of life, and it's a part of an author's life. And it's not very fun sometimes, but we can talk about that later in the questions if you want. I also wrote for Scholastic a Native American heroes book, and it's nonfiction, so that means not fake, so it's true stories. And it's a little different take on what a hero is. So it's not a superhero who flies. I did include people who were extremely wealthy or who could fill a stadium up because they're a famous rock star. But what I really wrote about was the representation of Native people and who we call heroes, because heroes are helpers. So it could be somebody who was an athlete in a wheelchair and showed people that that can be done. And so that's one book that you might like. I have a story in Ancestor Approved. And so that's a really fun story. An anthology is a bunch of stories together. And then I'm really here to talk about Jojo McCoon's. So just a little bit, a lot of times people will ask, Donna, how do you write a book? Well, I don't have a writing degree. I didn't go to school to write, but one of the things that's really, really important, if you want to be a writer, whether it's writing a couple sentences, maybe you want to write a song or a poem, but you need to read. I always talk about how reading and writing are really interconnected. It's like, excuse me, it's like breathing. So you can't just inhale, you have to exhale too. And so that's what makes me think about writing. So in order to write, I have to read. That's almost like my inhaling. And then when I exhale, that is really how I write. I like to write by a window. I'm in my basement right now because everybody's upstairs having pizza. And so I like to write with my friends around me. And so, you know, sometimes people think grown-ups like to watch really fancy, schmancy things that aren't interesting to kids. But actually, my family and I, we love to watch movies that we watched with our girls when they were younger, but we still watch them, like Shrek. And so around me, I have fun little things like this, like my Minions, because they make me happy. Because a lot of times I daydream when I'm writing. And I like to look around at certain things. I have some family down in Arizona, and so they have little animals called javelinas. And so my dad bought me this book, so I kind of keep him by me too. You'll notice I've got my little baby Yoda back here. And so I like to have a lot of things around me that make me happy, but they also just sort of let me daydream a little bit about certain things because I want to write for children. And so I like to keep my childlike mind in there too. I always am listening and watching around me to notice things. I don't spy on people, but I really try to look at people. I've always been interested in people and their reactions. Sometimes they find little snippets of their things that they say into my book. My family hates that because I'm always writing down things after they say something that I think is funny or interesting. And then I always have some writer friends too. Whether you have somebody that you just, sometimes people don't want to share their writing, and that is absolutely fine. You're still a writer if you write and no one in the world ever sees it. But I like to have people who we kind of trust each other and we share each other's writing to make it better. I'm just going to jump over that one. And so this book, Jojo McCoon's, was Isaiah's born out of rejection. And so what I mean by that is I had a different book that I submitted to be published, and it was rejected by about 5 publishers, and rightly so. I look back now and it just wasn't ready to go. And so my friend, Cynthia Leddick Smith, who's an amazing Native author herself and a friend and a mentor, she said, you know what, Dawn? Okay, this book didn't work, but what about you writing a chapter book series, a Native chapter book series? Because there's never been a Native chapter book series before. So when you think about it, a chapter book series, it's kind of like Judy B. Jones, Lola Levine, like that. And so I started, all of a sudden I said, well, I can't write a chapter book. Can I? And then this little Josephine McCoon's Azure started running around in my mind. And I just had so much fun with her. And so what I do hope for this book is that kids will see, this is a great story. This is a fun story. Maybe they'll learn a little bit. And oh, by the way, the main character happens to be Ojibwe. like me. So I'm going to read a little bit. Chapter 1. I've got to put my glasses on here. Hey, Jojo Macoons, they used to be best friends. And you can find this at bookstores and especially libraries. And librarians love to connect you to books. All right, chapter 1, best friend number 1. So this book, Jojo Macoons, is really about friendship. And so it's about Jojo has her best friend number 1, Mimi, which is her cat on the cover there. But her best friend number 2, Fern, at school doesn't really seem to be wanting to sit at lunch with her or be her best friend anymore. And so the book is all about how can Jojo get more friends. And Jojo really, she sort of sees the world in a different way. And sometimes it's different than the way other people see it. But I think that's just fine. Okay, here we go. Best friend number 1, chapter 1. Goodbye, Mimi, I said as I walked past her on the way out the front door. Mimi, my cat, didn't say anything. I said, goodbye, Mimi, I'll miss you. I even threw her some air kisses. Mimi only turned her head away from me. Mimi, you will always be my best friend number 1. Mimi still didn't say anything. Why is it she won't ever reply or let me know she'll miss me when I'm gone? I know I'll miss her. We do this every day. Well, almost every day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I have to leave every day. Mama says it's the law. There should be a law about not saying goodbye to your first best friend. Me, the one who has to go to school every day. Every day. Well, almost. I think I would like to have more friends. At least friends who will answer me. But cats are very good home friends. They are already potty trained and they are very clean. And they will even take you on a walk. I have a best home friend. And I used to have a best school friend, but I don't think my best school friend Fern wants to be my best friend anymore. I think I need more pals, just in case. Let me tell you about myself. I'm 7 years old and in the first grade. My first name is Jojo Macoons Asher. You want to know another way of saying that in Ojibwe? That's the name of my Native American tribe. Try saying Jojo Macoons Asher Nindigenakas. That's a big last word, right? You sound it out just like this, Nindigenakas. Got it? If you can say Tyrannosaurus Rex, you can say Nindigenakas. But my real big name is Josephine Macoons Asher. Mama says my grandpa, my mushum, gave me the name Macoons because when I was a baby, I growled and I had short black hair, just like a little bear cub. You say Macoons like this, Macoons. I'm just going to skip around just a little bit. Mama says I have very strong lungs, but Grandpa always also said that I will grow up to be strong like a bear. Except the only time I really hear my big, full, fancy name is from Mama when I get in trouble. Josephine Macoons Asher, why is grapefruit juice all over my beating? Josephine Macoons Asher, why are the toes cut out of all the new socks I bought you? Mama likes to ask me these silly questions, but I think the answer should be kind of easy to figure out. Like Tuesday, I was drinking grape juice outside the kitchen, which I'm not supposed to do. I was looking at the beaded leather jewelry Mama was working on for the summer powwow trail. And when I tried to get closer to look at it, I spilt my grape juice all over the table. Mama is always telling me not to get the fancy living room carpet dirty. So before the grape juice could run off the table, I mopped it up real quickly with the closest thing I could find, her leather jewelry. And she never even thanked me for saving the carpet from grape juice, which is a very hard stain to get out. And the sock question, well, I like to sleep with socks on every night, even in the summer. But my toes get very hot because my cat, Mimi, always sleeps on my feet, which is why I have my night socks. They have the toes cut out. Mama says I always should save things instead of throwing them away. And so I glued together all the sock toes and I'm going to use it for a present for her. But shh, it's a secret. It's a potholder quilt. All right, so I think I'm going to stop there reading, but I did want to show you the glossary, which we know is kind of a fancy word for a little dictionary at the end of a book. And so when you read JoJo, You can learn some Ojibwe words and you can practice along too. And so you can practice words like buju, which means hello, cookum, and moshum. Those are Michif words for grandma and grandpa. And then you learn the words macoons, which means little bear cub. That's Jojo's middle name. And then Nindichinakatas, and that's how you say my name is. And then Ojibwe, that's the name of Jojo's Native American tribe. And you can see she's saying buju. And so this is going to be the end of when I talk. And so I just want to say, Miigwech, thank you so much. And I'm really excited for all of you to take the first step or more steps into reading Native American books by Native authors. And this is one of my favorite slides. It says read in many beautiful Native American languages.